To all my millennial friends out there, congrats, you just lost the game. Thankfully, I'm not dead. Well, I guess thankfully a lot of people aren't dead. I had the pleasure this week of getting a stomach bug and then getting COVID. It was not very fun. Anyway, about a month ago, my patrons over at Patreon decided that Cupid Hanzo should be this month's main Trash After Dark photo shoot. I haven't done a How I've Made video in a while, and even though I made this costume over a year ago, between not doing the How I've Made video and Trash After Dark, let's just make a video and make them kiss. Metaphorically. Thank you again to all my patrons, and again, one of my favorite things about Patreon is being able to connect with people and like have this poll and like, hey, how can I provide content that's going to be cool? People like seeing the, behind the scenes process, and also, like the wink photos, and it's like a good coalescence. I'm not going to do the whole kissy hands thing again because that was weird. I started making this costume when I had like 150 followers on Instagrams. I wasn't really trying to document a lot of my process. Thank you so much for already being subscribed. Right? Anyway, why did I choose this costume? I don't know. Same reason why I choose all my other costumes. Ooh, that looks cool. What I prefer to do is typically some partially revealing cosplay, either like sleeveless or a crop top or like a V. It's just, I don't know. That's just like the version of shirtless cosplays that I like doing, because if I'm just not having a shirt on, typically it's something on my chest more than just... I used to play Overwatch a lot. I have the world's worst accuracy. I never mained Hanzo. I basically just mained support. Let's actually start at the bottom this time. If you've ever made leg wraps / bracers / shin guards / anything that goes around your legs, you will know very quickly that you're fighting gravity constantly. Sourcing the brown was actually pretty easy. There was a pontoon boat cover that I got that was large and brown, and that was nice. Why? Because it means I had a lot of uniform brown. Typically, when you make things like this, you need some sort of structure in there, so you were thinner fabric, because this is a pretty thin and also waterproof fabric, which made it hotter. And thankfully, what did I have lying around? And by lying around, the kayak that I used to have exploded. So what I ended up doing, inside of everything you see below on the bottom, there's kayak. Then I put 2 layers of the boat cover, realized that I needed more for structure, took it all apart, put probably 3 layers of the popped kayak. It's actually pretty sturdy once you get 3 layers. Sewed it down. I did not have enough uniform gold, and you need a lot of...
Ended up sewing it down, or sewing all the layers together, and used a lot of gold bias tape to go around the edges to make it all look nice and pretty. Repeated the process a bunch of times, and eventually, after a lot of trial and error, the leg bracers were born. The shoes ended up taking a lot more trial and error because I kind of had to carve open part of the shoes and stick the bracer that goes over the foot. It was very much all of my stuff is basically like just a walking chimera.
Shoes are shoes that my friend's cat peed on, so I was going to throw them out. I washed them so they were good enough, but they were still kind of like pee shoes. I mean, they're clean now, so it's not as gross. Those were definitely the most complicated part in terms of actually figuring out, okay, how am I going to do this in a reasonable way, get it on and off me and make it stand up? There is a lot of Velcro. There's a lot of the metal snaps. If you don't break things in parts, you're going to run into a lot of problems, like fighting gravity, fighting things falling apart. You like box yourself into a corner a couple of times and not be able to actually finish something. So I really had to plan each and every bit of this. The ones that go on my upper thighs, those are actually sewn into my underwear. I used fishing line. I have some spandex that goes under my shorts. Those are permanently attached. I mean, I guess I could cut the fishing line, but the belt literally gave me a stroke doing. I remember I was doing it like 3 in the morning one time. I don't know why I made it so much harder. I think this was my grandma's old pink shirt. Ended up Velcroing it together. Didn't like the Velcro, so also put in a clasp in there, so it's held up double tight. The only reason the belt is important is because the tunic that goes over me, which I think is like 5 bed sheets or something, and was really fun to do. The only way that I could reasonably connect the tunic together in a way that I liked was with a couple snaps. I didn't really like Velcro. I didn't want to tie it or anything. The belt is accurate to the costume, but it functions just to hide the fasteners that go together. Kind of still moving up. As I said, the tunic was pretty hard, but I kind of realized that I needed to break the neck thing into 2 separate pieces because the tunic was going to slide off my body and it barely goes over the shoulders. There's not a way to make something that baggy really and also make it connect to your body with just a tunic alone. So instead of making an additional undergarment, I think I ended up just using Velcro that is going to be hidden right here. It goes over my chest, connects pretty easily. That way it's easier to get on because multiple pieces is always going to be easier to get on than one piece. I can always redo something if I mess up. And most importantly, I can hide all of the ugly parts. The tunic did end up having a lot of detail. The gold trim that I bought, is that gold trim? Everything was a pretty painstaking process to figure out how am I going to put that individual piece. Gold-ish material that ended up hand sewing onto the sides. These are foam, and it's actually 5 different pieces. Those end up being just Velcroed on there. It's really dissecting the entire costume, making each piece individually, and kind of slowly figuring out how you're going to put it on you. This costume did kind of break me a little bit. I was straight up not having a good time for the last 4 days of the build because I was crunching, but it looks really good. The other trick is the sleeve. I found a shirt that was very, very similar to my skin color. Put my arm in there and was like, I'm gonna draw a rose. And since it goes up here to the shoulder and there is a wrist gauntlet on the left arm, I could hide the ends of the gross sleeves. I think this was some container that I hollowed out, and then I did have to put a foam trim on it because I couldn't think of a good way to raise up the height. So I did have some of that brown material left, the boat cover, and the right arm was extremely annoying to make. I remember texting a couple of my friends just how much I hate gloves during the whole process because this material is so thick, it's really hard to make gloves from. Also, it doesn't help that you're bad at gloves and you don't have the right tools for everything. So I ended up making a fingerless glove. That was a lot of hand sewing to get that right. It's not very stretchy, so I actually had to make a slit up in here so that the zipper goes from right here all the way down to there. But thankfully, this giant, hideous, like, boat cover plastic cardboard mess could be hidden pretty easily because Hanzo does have a patch over here, so it looks like it's good. I was very surprised at that. All the accoutrements on there, again, are just like, okay, what do I have that's gold? This stuff. Okay, I have some foam scraps. Let's just glue those on the knuckles. The rope is a rope. It doesn't feel good. I really hate the feel of it. I didn't really do anything to it. I just wrapped it around my body, and then I did make the little ornaments that kind of like fix the rope together. One looks like an anchor, kinda, and the other looks like a weagle woggle. I don't think a weagle woggle is a word. That was just the best word I could think of. I didn't want to say widget. Headpiece was a lot of coat hangers that are wrapped in paper mache, and then eventually did get a film cover on it. I'm already really bad with proper nouns, and then I'm using so many random materials that may have a proper name that it's constantly like, the thing, the stuff, the thing, the stuff, the thing. That was the main part of the costume. That's what I finished first for a con in Bowling Green, and then I decided, well, we have to make his weapons. I wish I could tell you a more creative way to make large weapons like the bow and arrow, but what I ended up doing was using my projector to project the bow on the wall. I trace everything out with scratch paper, kind of glue it together. I also needed to find all of the pressure points because something like this, if you take any prop and just go wiggle, 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 or since I was going to be walking around with this, I'm going to be gripping it, and it's going to be doing this a lot, and this a lot.
After I got it traced out and figured out all the pressure points where I needed things, I needed to make it sturdy, and wood was my first thought, and I quickly realized that was a pretty terrible idea.
The one thing that I'm actually really good at that I never really show off is I'm a very good woodworker. That's my background in terms of crafting, but I didn't want to carry around a wooden bow because that would be incredibly heavy. I don't even remember everything that I was using because it was just a lot of like junk. So these 4 pieces that ended up making the bow, like it was just, I was just stuff that was bound or glued or taped together to make 4 pretty good base pieces. Once they were lined up, I would just drill a hole through 2 of them, drill in a screw, repeat that process 2 or 3 times to make sure it was fastened, and then continued on with a 3rd and 4th piece to make a very, very solid. I think I used a lot of paper mache on part of the outside and a lot of sanding to just kind of make the body of everything.
After the frame of the bow was built out, I was just looking around for various things. Ended up using more foam than I thought I was going to, but when you have all these just, I don't really know what to call them, just like adornments, pieces, just extra things on the bow that are part of the design, you just gotta make them as light as possible, and you gotta find the best trash you can.
It was just constantly looking to the reference image and be like, oh, it has this doohickey. How am I going to make this doohickey? Oh, there's something underneath it. The arrow was completely made out of trash. I think that was actually a stick that I whittled, and then the top was, that's an old spool thread that I shaved down a little bit, and the feathers and the tip are both, I think, part of an old license plate, so those 2 things were relatively straightforward. I was like, oh, I can kind of like keep building on this. The part that I messed up and that I really did not like doing, and part of the reason why I don't carry it around with me as much as possible, is because the quiver is insanely heavy. Here we are. This is a monster and weighs about 10 pounds. I don't like wearing it. I wish I took more photos of this because I don't have as many reference photos. This base is a 3D PLA spool set on its side. You know, some restaurants, they give you their plastic cups as if you want them. You're like, this is yours to keep. I'm like, I don't want that. Using the whole of the spool, variety of cups were stacked on top of each other, you know, in alternating ways to kind of originally give it a more in out shape before eventually making the cup. So that was the, you know, first initial pass at it. Figuring out how I was going to do the back, I think this is actually a piece of wood because I had a wood that was almost exactly the same size. These were, you know, those electric car things like on a track? That's what these are. I remember at first pass, this was just hideous and already kind of heavy because it's spool, we got cups, everything's just kind of glued, stapled, taped together. We got literal wood, race car track. A lot of ugly things were very much exposed. I mean, this, you know, the spool, it was just completely empty here. The cups were not completely symmetrical. There were holes in the top of the spool. Everything was just really terrible. This is a paper rose that I made. I think I just looked up how to make a rose out of paper. This is from some random metal that I found in the parking lot of a Lowe's.
This is what I mean by me finding trash in places where, example, I just found some wire on the ground, which I actually need for this Hanzo cosplay. Anyway, in the truck you go.
What I ended up doing to make this look semi-decent, I covered this in drywall mud. Why? This isn't Dora, you don't have to answer. It was just so uneven and bumpy and holes, and it looked so terrible because it was just so many holes and gaps and everything. So I just kept adding more drywall mud and more drywall mud and more drywall mud. Making it so heavy, there was no way I could put it on the tunic. So what I ended up coming up with, and yes, this is a strap to some shorts or something and some rope and a carabiner, but you can't see this because it's under the tunic. Goes on my back like this. And then I also wear a, can I say jockstrap? Is that illegal? But yep, it's just, I'm not wearing a jockstrap right now because they're insanely uncomfortable. I don't know why people wear them. I feel like a lot of people are going to say in the comments why people wear them. But yeah, it literally just goes over. Yep. It's terrible. I need to put something right here because the rope does dig into my shoulder and give me a really bad rope burn if I ever wear it for a long period of time. Oftentimes when you don't know what you're doing and you're using materials that don't want to play nice, it is a lot of trial and error during the process of trying things on, taking it off, modifying it, doing a little bit, and then just layering and layering more trash, and then eventually layering something smooth that may or may not be trash to make it look okay. Really excited to make this video because, well, I mean, it ties into Trash After Dark, it ties into a poll that people really wanted to see. I think it's a pretty unique costume, it's one of my hardest ones, so I'm really happy to that I got a chance to talk about it. Until next time. I was about to say, where's my hat, but I was also about to say, where's my phone? There's a lot of things you shouldn't throw against walls. Until next time, signing out. From this rabbit ranger. I don't know what that means. Friend? Yeah, instead of karma is my best friend, it's grimace is a taste bud. I guess I would fish for beans. Ooh, cosplays from lies. Free skin. It's like that episode in SpongeBob. I don't know where that's been. I shouldn't do that.